I'm Jeff Fritz with SoundStage.com, and I'm joined today by Brent Butterworth. He is the senior editor of SoundStage Solo. Brent, how are you doing today?
Good, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I really appreciate you joining me today. In the past couple of days, Apple has dropped some news that is relevant to audiophiles, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But just for our viewers and our readers who may not be familiar with Soundstage Solo and your work, can you give us a brief introduction of your vast experience in the audio industry?
Sure. Currently, I am the uh, whatever you want to call me, senior editor, something of Soundstage Solo, which is a website that's devoted to headphones and headphone technology. And we do. I guess we review 3 products a month and have like a column every month that talks about headphone related issues. I've also written for some of the other Soundstage sites. I'm also a senior staff writer at Wirecutter, reviewing, oh gosh, numerous speaker categories, sound bars, Bluetooth speakers, uh, beard trimmers, um, whatever they tell me to review. Uh, I was the editor in chief of Home Entertainment Magazine, which was like a custom installation thing. I was editor in chief of Home Theater in the 90s. I was editor in chief of the E-Town website. I worked on Video Magazine covering home theater way back when home theater really kind of just began. And I was also, for a couple of years, the marketing director for Adobe Labs. And I've done a lot of consulting for, I do a lot of technical stuff, I do a lot of measurements. I've done a lot of consulting for manufacturers on product design and voicing.
Well, there's no doubt that you're the right guy for this discussion. And the news that I spoke of earlier was, Apple talking about spatial audio, and there's demos on Apple Music right now. Anyone can go listen. But before we get into that, I want to know what it is. Tell me exactly what spatial audio is.
So spatial audio is, in this case, I mean, there's different technologies, but by far the leading technology is Dolby Atmos. And Atmos is, it comes out of the theatrical realm. Um, it takes, 7.1 channel sound, which we're all familiar with, Dolby Digital and DTS and all that sort of thing. And it tacks on what's called objects. And an object can be any sound. It could be someone talking. It could be a bee buzzing. It could be someone with a shaker. Um, and instead of that sonic object, which is just a file, just a recording. Instead of that sonic object being assigned either left or right channel or some mix of left and right as you would have in stereo, or being assigned to a specific, left, center, right surround channel, it's just an object, and you have vectors associated with it. So, X, Y, and Z vectors that put it wherever around you. So instead of assigning something to a channel, you give it vectors, and so that way the sound can move wherever you want it to. That sounds a little gimmicky, and more like a movie thing, which frankly kind of really was conceived for the movies. It wasn't conceived for music, I think. So, but the advantage of this with music is that you can take those vectors and map them into sort of any kind of speaker system. So you can do Dolby Atmos. The sort of the Atmos is all over. It can be anywhere all around you, but sort of the whole idea is that you have ambience, you have overhead sound, right? Which you have in a home theater, you would put speakers in the ceiling, or you have speakers that bounce off the ceiling. But you can also render that to all sorts of different devices. Like the Amazon Echo Studio speaker is a little speaker about that big, and it has a top firing speaker that shoots upward to create a more immersive effect. And Atmos can map to that. It can also map to just headphones, and so you use virtualization technology to sort of trick your ears into thinking you're hearing sounds from overhead or from whatever direction you want. And virtualization's been around for at least 25 years in headphones, maybe longer. But that's basically, and then you can map it onto sound bars and have upward firing speakers and sound bars. And so, when you have the vectors, you can kind of map it to any speaker system you want. Or you can just do straight, the Atmos can carry straight 2-channel sound as well, or 5.1 or 7.1 or whatever you want.
So what have you heard from Spatial Audio? Have you had a chance to play with it and do the demo? What's your opinion so far?
It's Spatial Audio doesn't have something I really want to stress. Spatial Audio and Dolby Atmos don't have a sound. They are, they are neutral carriers. They don't affect audio fidelity. They don't affect anything at all. So what goes into these technologies is whatever people put into them. So what you're judging is not the technology, but you're, to a large extent, not the technology, but what people choose to do with the technology. So I've listened to a lot of the Apple demos, and then Atmos Music has been kicking around for about I think a year and a half or 2 years now, because Amazon introduced it and Tidal introduced it. Dolby was kind enough to bring me down to their sort of super top secret theater. They bought a theater in Hollywood, and on the outside it looks like a shut down theater, but on the inside it's absolutely state of the art. And they did a handpicked sort of demo for me of all the best stuff from like Blue Note and labels like that in with Atmos Music. And at its best, it is astonishingly more realistic than stereo. At its worst, it sounds really kind of stupid and undefined, and it sounds kind of like fat, facey mono. So there's great mixes. I mean, my personal favorite is Blue Note Records. The jazz label has really embraced this, and they've done a lot of different kinds of mixes with it. And some of the things are as simple as what's called reamping, where they basically take the jazz, the existing stereo mix of classic jazz recording, and because that's in most cases there's like a 2 or 3 channel mix of those classic early 60s things, and they pipe it into, say, Capitol Studio A here in Los Angeles through a pair of really good speakers, and then they have microphones all over the studio to capture the ambience of the studio, capture like the overhead reverberance and the all around you, and then they mix all that together with some of the original and create a new thing. Obviously, that's not a super high. That's the results you're going to get from something like that are probably modest. But there's a recording they did of Wayne Shorter's Infant Eyes, which I can't remember what album that's on. One of the Wayne Shorter 60s albums. He's a jazz saxophonist, for those who don't know. And it sounds like you are in Rudy Van Gelder's studio with Wayne Shorter's band. I mean, you hear the stereo, and the stereo is very focused with the saxophone sound dead center. And it's got some kind of left and right stuff with the piano and the drums, but bass in the center, of course. But then when you hear it, you kind of hear Wayne Shorter like off over. What side is he on? He's on this side. What is that? Left. Sorry. He's on the left side, and he's really kind of reverberating against that space. And the rest of the band is really kind of spread out like they naturally would be if you were sort of standing maybe 10 feet in front of them. And it's really remarkable. But and on the other hand, you have some of the there's a Kanye West thing they have in the demos called Black Skinhead, I think. And the sound just zips all around all over the place. Same with, there's one from a rapper called Little Baby, which is called Whoa, which I actually used to test headphones a lot. And it really gives you, you hear the stereo, and it's very kind of center with the vocal, and then some left and right stuff. With this, it's really like a wraparound effect, at least kind of behind your head because you're listening through headphones. So it can be great. It can. I've been going back and forth with Lauren Dragon at Wirecutter, who's their headphone editor, and we've just been texting furiously, saying, have you heard this one? Have you heard this one? And some of them are. Sometimes we're texting because like, have you heard how bad this one is? And sometimes we're texting like, wow, this one's really good. And so it's just all over the map right now. But if you go back to those stereo recordings of the early '60s, a lot of them were really bad. Some were really good.
So who is this most relevant to right now? Are we talking about mainly headphone users, people with two-channel stereos, folks with full 5.1, 7.2 setups? Who's going to benefit most from this? If they want to go hear it in all its glory with some of the best program material that you just mentioned, who is going to benefit from this the most?
As of this very moment, it's really just a headphone thing. This has been a minor, not a technical problem, just a sort of thing that they haven't done yet. You can stream Apple Music and Amazon Music and Tidal through Roku sticks and things like that. These various streaming devices that you can hook into a TV or an AV receiver or a soundbar. So from a technical standpoint, there's no reason you can't hear Atmos music through all these systems, just as you do with Atmos Blu-rays. But no one's done it yet. The Roku sticks just haven't been updated for that feature yet. So Apple told me that they're going to update the Apple TV boxes so that you can stream Atmos music from, Apple Music's app to receivers, soundbars, etc. So in home systems, you'll be able to hear this. But right now, the only way to hear it is with headphones and a few random devices like the Echo Studio, the Amazon Echo Studio speaker, which has the top firing speaker, and it's just not, one top firing speaker. You hear a little more ambient, so it's fine, but it's not going to change anybody's world. So supposedly I'm going to get an Apple TV box this week, and I'll actually be able to try this, and we'll see what happens and how it sounds on a real system. It should sound pretty great. It should sound actually better than with headphones, because with headphones you're still, no matter what you do, you're still limited to two channels. They do all this processing, and it's still just two channels going to yours, just left and right. So they have to do a lot of processing on it with the Dolby Atmos to make it sound as if you're hearing overhead and sound behind you. And to Apple's credit, they've optimized, since they have kind of a closed ecosystem. If you buy their headphones, like the AirPods Max or the AirPods Pro, and you connect through Bluetooth, which they're assuming you're going to do, then the app knows what headphones you have, and it can optimize the Atmos effect for those headphones. So I got a pair of AirPods Max, the big over ears that they have, and definitely the Atmos effect is more pronounced in those than it was in, say, the AKG K371s, which are my sort of normal monitoring headphones for recording. I've tried a few different conventional headphones, and definitely with the Apple AirPods Max, I got the best Atmos effect. So my big concern with this is that a lot of people are going to put this on and listen to one of the cuts that's not particularly exciting. And there are some cuts where honestly it's not that big of a difference. And you're, with artists like Ariana Grande and The Weeknd, they've already been doing this kind of thing essentially through Pro Tools plugins and things like that, and all the different reverb plugins have been attempting to create this sort of big ambient sound anyway. So you listen to those, it's kind of like, it's not
No,
super exciting.
you're right, and it's funny that you mentioned that. Right before the interview, I did exactly what you're suggesting. I went on Apple Music. I listened to the demo with my son's AirPods Pro, and the Marvin Gaye track sounded amazing. The Weekend track, eh. So, I do think the jury's still out. I think exactly what you say. It's going to be program dependent, and it's going to be equipment dependent as well. And would you agree that the jury's still out as to how popular this actually becomes and whether it really becomes more mainstream, or, what's your parting thoughts on that?
Oh, oh yeah. And I should add also that they can, like I said, Atmos can be optimized to work with any conceivable speaker system. Obviously, it's going to work better with some than others, but two-channel audiophiles can experience this with a two-channel system. Apple even says they've optimized it to where you can listen to the speakers in an iPad and get some semblance of Atmos. So I was the marketing director for Dolby back in the DVD audio days, and when we were trying to push surround sound for music. And back then, it was really hard to do, and there were a lot of technical issues, and it was really complicated for people to set up. And the players were $1,000, and uh, the nice thing about this is, this is kind of free. I mean, if you're an Apple Music subscriber, you get it at no extra charge. Likewise, Amazon Music, Tidal, I think. Um, so, and you can listen to it through normal headphones or Apple ones if you're one of the 60 million people or whatever that have those. Uh, and, so there's kind of no extra charge. You can try it. If you don't like it, turn it off. Apple's making it the default, though. So they think people are going to like it. And I kind of, they're also making it easy to produce. They're building it into Logic Pro. And it's not, I'm told by my people that are deeper into audio production than I am, that it's really not hard to do Atmos stuff. So I, I have to say this: stereo works really, really well, and I don't think that adding more of anything is going to make most of the music we listen to. It's not going to give it any new meaning. It's not going to. Might make it a little more dazzling. Might make it sound a little better. But what we have now works really well. Whether people will come to prefer this, I mean, they've got a giant universe of people using Apple headphones. And if this is, and people tend to use the default setting on their phones and their headphones. So
Right.
if this is the default, and if listeners become accustomed to this, it could very well become an expected norm, at least for big budget productions where they can spend another $5,000 or $10,000 to do Atmos mixes of the album, because it is another mix. You're gonna have to have a stereo mix, and you're gonna have to do an Atmos mix. And of course, you can do a quick and dirty Atmos mix. You can do a great Atmos mix. It costs kind of what you want to spend. So it's going to be all over the map. And of course, there'll be bad, terrible mixes that people can point to and say Atmos is terrible, and there'll be great ones. And
Yeah, well,
I'm kind of happy it's there. It gives me something new to listen to.
yeah, and ultimately the consumer's going to decide, right? And maybe we can do this again in 6 months and see what the reception's been from just from your Joe audiophile to your Joe consumer, and we can see what the landscape looks like then. But Brent, hey, listen, I really appreciate you joining me today and giving us the lowdown on spatial audio. I think that's a really good basic education for most people that didn't know what it was, and even people that did but really didn't know all the history with Dolby and DVD audio that you mentioned. But thank you so much for joining us today, and let's check in again soon.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff.